Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, you GoPro listeners out there. This is Earl Morgan, your guest for the Earl Morgan Hour tonight.
Good evening.
And we have with us tonight Tinia Bland, my co-host, who
Good
has
evening.
been here for several weeks. And we will be having a very jam-packed, informative program. We have a guest coming in at the half hour, and we will be talking to our guest, Nora Watson, who will be sitting in the hot seat. She's the CEO of the Urban League of Hudson County, and that is an organization that does all kinds of wonderful and useful things in our community. So let's get started talking first about how you can reach us here at the Earl Morgan Hour. You can reach us on Facebook at the Earl Morgan Hour, Twitter at Earl Morgan Hour, and this is important because tonight I'm going to ask some people to call in on something. You can reach us at 714-888-7444. We'll put you right on the air. And tonight I'm going to be asking for people's opinion about my right jab. You can visit GoPro Radio at www.goproradio.com and donate by clicking on the donate button on the home page. Now, our donations are something we asked you to seriously consider, parting with a few ducats if you can, to give us some support. We're trying to keep this new GoPro Radio situation here alive and well, and you can help us with a donation. But having said all of that,
well, I want to appeal to the philanthropists. We take big donations also.
Oh yeah, well yes, if you have a few million that you don't have anything to do with, just go on www.goproradio.com, click on the donate button on the home page, and I'm sure somebody will be there to take your check, your cash, or however you want to pay it. PayPal, whatever. We take everything. So this week, let's start with, we have such a packed show. Let's start right away with the Edge of Whiteness, Tinia. What do you think?
I'm ready.
Okay, here's the book we're talking about this week. Let our readers take a look at that and see what the Edge of Whiteness is about. It was written by a young man named Joe Monteperto, and he is now a Jersey City resident who lives not too far from me. And Joe has written a book that is really hard to pin down and describe. It's a memoir. That's the first thing you can say about it. But after that, it sort of defies description. And he was a transplanted New Yorker from Brooklyn whose family moved to Roselle, New Jersey in the early 70s to escape the change of neighborhood. You know how that was. It was moving rapidly from Italian to a lot of other things, and the family wasn't happy about that. So they packed up and moved lock, stock, and barrel to Roselle, New Jersey, which is a very different environment, believe me, than almost any place in Brooklyn. The Monteperto's families moved to escape that changing neighborhood. And, Roselle, with its sun-dappled tree-lined streets of 1- and 2-family homes, promised an ordered, more serene existence than the family's Brooklyn environs were being transformed to. Our protagonist, Joe, suffered an extreme case of culture shock in Roselle. True, it was quieter, but the neighborhood people were weird, at least to him, and very, very white. Now, it wasn't that Joe wasn't, but he still had, even with the neighborhood the way it was changing, he all the time had a melange of other ethnic groups around, different types of music. It was still a potpourri of culture. But Roselle was vanilla. That's the best way to put it. When Joe had some problems with bullying from the few white toughs in the neighborhood, and he had to adjust to the slower pace of life of a New Jersey suburb, and all that was possible to sort of sink into until racial busing came to Joe's high school. Now, Joe described the first day of school when a bus pulled up and a group of black students, replete with loud radios and raucous ways of talking, disembarked. The new students completely changed the life of their white counterparts, and as Joe describes it, almost immediately took over the school. The white bullies were muscled aside by a more threatening black presence that talked differently, walked differently, and tended to band together to challenge the white students at every turn. An alliance of friends that Joe and his cousin Skinny, who also lived with him, had forged collapsed when this change of ethnicity occurred, and Joe and Skinny, to find something to do, began breaking into houses. They didn't actually steal anything. Instead, they played pranks like removing all the raisins from the Raisin Bran cereal box. That has to be the strangest thing that I could think of, Tinia, to break into somebody. They weren't thieves. They were just pranksters. To stop the bullying, Joe took a bus all the way to the police athletic league gym in Patterson to learn to box. And one day, while waiting for a bus, he spied a gorgeous Latina working in a beauty parlor just on the street, just behind the bus stop. Entranced, Joe enters the shop and actually not knowing what to say, but determined to get to know who this seemingly heavenly creature is, he just sort of stood there, spellbound and tie-tongued with no words. But the girl takes over, gives Joe a new hairstyle, and sends him on his way after a kiss, which he floated on for weeks. His boxing skills and newfound confidence is soon tested when a group of the white bullies who had always pushed him around decided to fasten on him a symbol of derision and suffering. Joe stands up to these bullies, but the fight takes place in the hallway of the school, gets Joe and his antagonist both suspended for several days. Joe returns to Patterson, drawn by the spellbinding beauty of the Latina hairstylist, who turns out to be a heroin addict. This embroils our hero in some weird twists and harrowing adventures as he tries to help his erstwhile girlfriend kick the habit and find a way to get away from her drug-pushing boyfriend. Along the way, Joe has to confront the type of racial tragedies that haunt us to this day. When an Arab man who ran the local 7-Eleven, the store suffered heavy damage when it was vandalized, and an anti-Arab message is scrawled on the building. This was a nice guy who didn't hurt anybody and took care of his store very well, and he and Joe got along fine. But the above mentioned was only a small example of the edge of whiteness that's written with style and humor and pathos as it harks back to a period in the life of Joe Monteparto that eventually leads to his embracing black culture, Malcolm X, black culture, and eventually Islam. Joe's near-total recall of the off-kilter, insecure, unnerving high school years that we all have experienced, and the social changes turning the long-held off-kilter. Well, hold on, I got a phone ringing here. The long-held sensibilities and shibboleths of our society upside down. The racism that twisted everyone, both black and white, are laid bare in the edge of whiteness. We often read, watch, or hear this story told from a black perspective by those who were thrown into a situation of various races taking the right or wrong moral sense from that experience. But often a false sense of survival that's rare to hear from a white perspective is very, very interesting to hear from Joe Monteperto. The problem here, of course, is he seems to have some perspectives on black culture that I find a little strange. There are aspects of Monteparto's books that are off-putting, especially his initial contact with the unknown territory of black culture, and it was lived in the early and mid 70s. But That is, after all, his take on those times told from his different racial perspective, which is what makes the book so interesting. As all truly good books do, Monteperto's work poses certain questions, pokes around the edges of certain issues that don't lend themselves to easy answers, such as how did such different cultural perspectives as the ones we live through develop, and how do we hold on to the best and most useful aspects of them, whatever they are. These differences are important and they make the country what they are, but there's some of them that we can jettison. To get a copy of The Edge of Whiteness, you must email joemonteparto.com to order a copy of the book. I can't find it available in any stores, but I guarantee you if you try joemonteparto.com to order, and his name is spelled Joe, Monteperto, and that's joemonteparto.com, and you might order a copy of this, and you might find that it is hilarious, tragic, full of all kinds of plaintive emotions that you definitely relate to as from high school, from your first high school love to your first fight with bullies. All of that is there, and it's something that I found extremely enjoyable. And then Joe's eventual change from a white high school kid to something, I don't know what you'd call it. Some people would say zebra, who became enthralled in black culture. He became blacker than the black guys, and then became a devotee of Malcolm X, and eventually became converted to Islam, which he found to be centered. That was a way to center his life. Now you got to admit, from Brooklyn to Roselle to Malcolm and Islam is one heck of a journey. Tinny, I would tell you that this is. I know that you have a book club.
Yes, I do.
And this might be just the thing for your book club to explore, because, believe me, the people that read this book will have a lot to say about what Joe Monteperto's experience was, how they liked it or disliked it, and some of the things about whites they probably didn't know, because they're another, sometimes it's like the other side of the mountain, and we don't often go there. So I would definitely recommend, if your book club is going to continue to do some of the things you've been doing, and you've been doing some great work there, that The Edge of Whiteness would be it. Right.
We'd love to. As a matter of fact, the book club is an open book club, so everyone is free. It's free, and everyone is welcome and encouraged to attend. Of all ages, if you're a minor, bring your parents.
Yes. When does the book club meet? Where?
Well,
how does that work?
As a matter of fact, 169 Monticello, and it meets the third Thursday, which will be tomorrow. And Latia McNeely, we will be finishing her book. She'll be coming down, doing a poetic rendering. And I want you to know that Latia McNeely has won the Union County Woman of Excellence Award that we put her in for. I did.
Well, Latia McNeely was one of the first guests we had on GoPro Radio, who has written a book called Burdens in My Backpack, which is a
phenomenal
it's
woman
phenomenal
with a
book.
Phenomenal story.
This is a woman who went through all kinds of trials and tribulations as a child, and even had a child herself while she was a child at 13, but eventually turned her life around and now has an MSW, a Master's in Social Work from Rutgers University, and is doing all kinds of wonderful things, as the Union County award proves.
She is the epitome of the poem "And Still I Rise" by Angela. Come on.
Angela.
By Mrs.
Angela.
And Still I Rise.
You threw me with the Maya. I mean the Angela. Right. Okay, we're coming up on a break. We shall return, and I will have more to say about reading in my right jab for this week, which is, I don't know. Better yet, let's let let's let Tinia do her right jab tonight. She is going to talk about Paul Ryan, who ran for vice president. When we come back, stay tuned.
See you in a minute.
The views and opinions expressed on GoPro Radio Network shows are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. or its affiliates. These broadcasts are provided on the understanding that they do not constitute professional advice or services. Individuals who speak in these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions. GoPro Radio Networks and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in these broadcasts. You may not edit, modify, or redistribute these broadcasts in any way without the express permission of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. GoPro Radio Networks assumes no liability for any of your activities in connection with these broadcasts or for your use of these broadcasts in connection with your website, computer, or playing device.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have a product or a service, a talent, or something important to say, now's your chance to have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out, a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We'll help you to grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 today or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
GoPro Radio, the fastest growing network in the galaxy, is leaner and meaner with a new attitude, new technology, and a brand new lineup. Tune in and get wired every Wednesday, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern with the BCS Experience featuring Byron C. Saunders, formerly of New York City's WBAI. Then at 6 p.m., it's the Black Agenda TV Express featuring sought-out political commentator Glenn Ford, formerly of America's Black Forum. Then at 8 p.m., it's time for Kay Thompson Live with the legendary radio host Kay Thompson of Inner City Broadcasting's WLIB and her son, renowned actor Eric Payne, who starred in such films as Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, Drop Squad, and many more. Then, at 9 p.m., it's Food Rap, featuring Nina Markel, a.k.a. the unofficial mayor of Jersey City, and former Viacom marketing guru. Last but not least, at 10 p.m. Eastern, it's the Sexy Party Show with the bad boy of dating Mr. Locario of I Love New York fame and his partner in crime, Miles Cunningham. So get wired every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern only on the GoPro Radio Network, www.goproradio.com. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, this is Earl Morgan. We're back on the Earl Morgan Hour. And just so you can know, you can reach us at you can like us on Facebook at the Earl Morgan Hour. And you can follow us on Twitter at Earl Morgan Hour. And tonight you can call in our call-in number 714-888-7444. Again, 714-888-7444. It's important because tonight we would like to hear some more calls like we got last week from the our audience. And if you feel the need or the expansiveness to donate to GoProRadio.com, we certainly would love it if you'd click on the donate button on the homepage, again, www.GoProRadio.com, and donate what you can, be it $1 million or 10. We'll take whatever we can get. We prefer the million, but 10 will help. All right, now we're changing the order up a bit tonight. And right now in our hot seat, we have our guest, Elnora Watson, who, with full disclosure, in the interest of full disclosure, I will say is an old friend of mine, and we've been through some rugged wars together. Tania, do you know Elnora Watson well?
I've officially met her tonight. I spent the day reading everything I could, and I will say, phenomenal woman, doing phenomenal things.
Yes. I can tell you that I remember when Elnora told me she was going to take an old bank building that is now our headquarters on Martin Luther King Drive. What's that address, Elnora?
253 Martin Luther King Drive.
She was going to take it and turn it into a headquarters, a center for. And I said, okay. But knowing Jersey City as I did, it sounded like a nice dream, but a bit of a pipe dream. Well, it's not a pipe dream. It's there. It's alive. It's breathing, and it's a very, very valuable space for our community. But let's start from the beginning, Elnora. When did you begin as the CEO of the Urban League of Hudson County?
Well, I began as the CEO in 1989. I started my tenure with the Urban League in 1978.
And, okay, so since you moved into that new space there on Martin Luther King Drive, which isn't so new now, it's been there for a little while.
12 plus years.
Yeah. Since you moved into that space, and people, you got to go and see it because it's just a honeycomb of places that do all kinds of things. Give us an idea of what programs are available there.
Well, we have the traditional Urban League services, or what people traditionally think of as Urban League, helping to find people jobs, provide training, that kind of thing. But our community is very needy, black and brown community, and so we have a number of services that we offer. One of our long-standing services is services to the senior population, the frail population, homebound population, and any senior who walks through the door. We have a 30-plus year relationship with what was the Division of Youth and Family Services, which is now called the Department of Children and Family, and under that we have...
You're talking about the State Department.
State Department of Children and Family. And under that umbrella, we do clinical counseling. I have staff who are credentialed to do that kind of work. We can do marriage counseling. We do parenting. We supervise visits among children and parents who are separated through some action of the state. We also do visitation for children whose parents are incarcerated as well. We work with young mothers and not so young mothers to try to mentor them in a way to raise their children so that there is no need for intervention by an outside entity in their lives and their children's lives.
Don't you also do affordable housing?
Well, we do affordable housing as well. It's a separate corporation. We develop housing. We've developed about, I would say, 20 units of housing that's owned by the Urban League of Hudson County. Mm-hmm. And we've partnered with others, and we are about to enter into a partnership that will yield 130 units. It's a not-for-profit, for-profit partnership. And we've done a project with the Bayonne Community Action entity. That was 18 units of affordable housing. So we've done quite a bit there. We do housing management. So we know the desperate need for affordable housing. So we are as I said, trying to partner with other entities to make more housing available. So the Affordable Housing, and it's called Affordable Housing and Development Corporation, Urban League of Hudson County, Inc. And that's the vehicle we use to do housing, but it was also the vehicle to do the development and construction of our headquarters. We were our own developers, and we put the financing together for it, and so that was another use of the Affordable Housing and Development Corporation. We have a new program which is a pre-apprenticeship training program where we're trying to prepare individuals to be able to take pre-apprenticeship programs that unions may offer. We are developing...
You're talking about the construction unions?
Construction unions,
yeah.
Yes. And we're developing some relationships there, which, you know, is not something that has progressed a lot in our community, but we are making some inroads. There are some individuals who are working with us to help develop that, and the list of students that are in the class really came from people who walked by and was watching a development that we were doing, our parking lot. We developed a parking lot, and you know, most people might say, oh, what is there to develop on the parking lot? Well, you have to have architectural plans, you have to have every department in the building department in the city, the sewer department in the city, they all have to review what you do, and it's rather complicated sometimes because you have to make sure there's appropriate drainage and that kind of thing.
Right.
So a list of people just stop by asking for work.
Yeah.
And so we developed a list of people, and we eventually contacted them to go into the pre-apprenticeship civil construction program.
You know, everything that you're telling us about with Urban League is so interesting, but I'd like to hear, and so would so many of our listeners, tell us about how this came to be. This woman with this dream that turned into this empire. I'm going to call it an empire. Tell us about this young woman, what her passions were that led her here, please.
Well, what led me was a black ghetto preacher by the name of Earl. He taught us about dreaming, and that if you can dream, you can make it come true. And he did that in a section of Lafayette.
It does.
Of Lafayette. And, you know, I never professed to be a student, but a good student. And I tried to be a good student. And when you believe in something, then you put a plan together, and that's what he would do.
Sound familiar to you?
Put your plan together, you know, and you talk about it with people who know. If you don't know, you go to the best who does know, and you try to listen and learn, and the pieces eventually come together. You start small. One of the things that grew out of dreaming, I guess, and maybe not so much dreaming, I was approached by someone who worked for the city to help them with issues concerning senior abuse. And the county had a committee that was meeting, and they were meeting, but the stories kept coming. So I kind of urged the county to look into setting up services, and that was in 1980. And something called Protective Services for Seniors was set up. And after a few years, the design changed and is now run by judges and lawyers. But the purpose is still there, and the seniors still get served, or they don't get any peace from the Urban League if they don't get served.
Wonderful.
But I learned how to dream in church.
So, what helped you sustain this? Because many times you'll start out with a dream that turns into a plan that goes on. But what keeps the fire in your belly? The kicks that one would get, the bad press that one would get. What sustains you?
Well, I run into someone who I'd made a difference in their lives. Not people that you don't remember. In college, I was part of a street academy. Some of my fellow students, we ran a street academy. And in that, there were a lot of young people. And I happened to be working on developing a charter school. And one of the kids that was in the street academy was bringing his kid to sign up for the charter school, or someone who had an issue at work, and the Urban League was able to make a difference there. So those little successes and opportunities to help someone, and it panned out, is what keeps you going.
How many employees do you have at the Urban League?
I believe it's about 91.
I've heard that you're one of the largest employers of people, minority people especially, in the county.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We don't have a lot of people doing that.
Well, Earl, there's work to be done. One of the things, we have established a reputation for getting our job done. If someone contracts with us, then they are certain to get their money's worth. And it's because of these the committed people that work for the Urban League, and we have been blessed. We have people who are committed and who are talented and who believe in the cause. And because they do, they've helped the Urban League to grow. And seeing that helps you go on. Some of them have gone on to start their own business. But we have a saying, once an Urban Leaguer, always an Urban Leaguer. They come back, they say hi, you find out how they're doing. You just give what is there to give. And it certainly is not entirely me at the Urban League.
Well, I will say this. Now, having been a person who goes and comes at the Urban League very often, and whose wife was once an Urban Leaguer, as you say, if you want to work, go to the Urban League and you will find meaningful and fruitful work. If you don't waste your time, because Elnora does not play. You work when you work for Elnora. No one in that particular office, in that particular agency, people work. They put their head down and they work all day. And I've often said that. My wife is an example. She used to come home, and Mohammed, her boss, is trying to kill me and collapse on the porch. But she loved it. She was there for years.
Well, we try to set a standard. And as I said, I have excellent managers and line staff that will go to the mat for the people that we serve. Now, if you come in there looking for assistance, and it's available to you, and by being available, there's some things that you have to meet, income eligibility and other kinds of eligibility. And if you're eligible, you're going to get it in a respectful way.
Talk to us, please, about duplication of services in our community, because I was reading this afternoon about a host of services that are offered at the Urban League. But I see now other entities in that area are duplicating the services. Why is that?
Well, I can't speak to that. I'm not sure.
Do you know that there are duplications of services?
Well, I'm sure some people do some of the same things and do them well. I'm along Martin Luther King Drive. I'm not certain who you may be referring to, but we try to partner with other entities because we know we can't do it all, and sometimes we can enhance a service by partnering with another entity that's doing a similar kind of thing. So I'm not sure so much about duplications. Our largest contract is the child care contract. We are an agent of the state, and there's no one that does that on Martin Luther King Drive. As I indicated, we have clinical services. We have credentialed staff that can provide some mental health services. Of our community, I don't know who is providing that service.
Well, Nora, there are things where people are maybe duplicating, but when you take a look, and I've talked about this with you, when you take a look at the kind of crisis situation that we're often in, that we're always in, duplication is not,
But when you talk about the center of our community, and as I said, there may be some organizations that are there, and we work with other organizations. We partner with them because that's the best way to serve, and sometimes we even refer someone to another organization. But in terms of the African American Latinx community that is on Martin Luther King Drive, we do try to partner with others, but when we look at most of the services that the Urban League has on Martin Luther King Drive, there are not many, if any, that do some of the things that we do.
There's another thing I wanted to ask you. I happen to have been there today, and as usual, there are a lot of. It was 6 p.m. something like that, about 5 o'clock, and there were several different things going on. A lot of young ladies in there.
Training.
What was that all about?
That's training that takes place for working people, mostly in the child care industry. They come after work to do their training and upgrade their skills and try to acquire their national certification.
And the Urban League does that work too?
We do that as well, and they are must be Wednesday.
It's Wednesday,
Saturdays. Well, the class is on Wednesdays.
How does that? What do you think about the idea of the apprenticeship program? We seem to have because I know in our area, you tried to get guys jobs, and
I did,
with
and
some success and some not so much success.
And because of that, I wanted to ask, what about those that have problems on their records? Because we have citizens that have so many
criminal records.
Thank you.
Yes.
Clarifying.
Well,
if they have a record.
That's never.
But they still want to work.
Yeah, if they have a record and come into the Urban League, there are some employers that will work with them. For this particular program, when we were developing it, and it took us about 18 months to meet and develop this particular program, we were asked to make sure that we included the reentry population. And this is a program that is funded by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And they specifically asked us to make sure when we are doing our selection process that we include ex-offenders. And we have some in the class, and we have one or two who are employed.
Well, Mrs. Watson, for those that are listening, we have so many callers. Is it still time that they can be part of it? Can you tell them what to do?
They should come to the Urban League and they should ask for the pre-apprenticeship program, the civil construction pre-apprenticeship program. They can get on the list if the class is full. We've graduated. Well, we've had one class complete, and and they get OSHA certification, safety
What's
certification.
OSHA? A lot of people don't know, so we have to
It's
explain.
an acronym.
For occupational safety.
Right.
And they get that certification because anyone who's on a construction job, they want them to have that certification and safety certification. So we have groups that have done that. The classes are small. There are no more than 15 in the class because we want to make sure that everyone gets all of the skills. There's a lot of math involved. A lot of math. We have an excellent math teacher, and we divide the class based on the pre-test we give them. And so if they need more basic skills, they're in that class. If they don't need the basic skills, they go on to into the pre-construction.
When you say basic skills, I think we really have to talk about the fact that possibly because our school system isn't what it should have been, and some of our families are distressed, let's say, that a lot of people don't have a lot of basic skills. So that means that you'll have to, go back and teach people reading, writing, and arithmetic very often.
Sadly, that's not new. You may recall
no, it isn't.
A young woman by the name of Claire Damio. We ran a kind of a street academy out of St. Michael's Church 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
And the young people then could not write their name or write a paragraph about themselves. So it isn't a new phenomenon, and so it's what we have to deal with and what we do.
What about the young men that during their youth, and youth being under 20, had run-ins with the law and now have records, but haven't done anything since then, and they were in different states, so they weren't eligible for Senator Cunningham's program? Can you help them?
Anyone who walks in the Urban League doors, we try to help. I can't tell you case by case, but I don't know anyone who seriously came in looking for some kind of assistance that we couldn't help, whether they had a record in New Jersey or any place else. Now, I don't know the mechanics of the senator's law. I know she's probably done more than...
That's over. So that one's
Yeah.
over. I was asking if the Urban League had something that you knew of with that, because we have a large population that it came from other states. And because they have a record, they are eliminated from many jobs.
Well, they would get eliminated.
So I'm
no matter
wondering.
where they
From anyway,
Right.
But the only
What can
thing I
we
can
do
tell
to help
you
them?
is to send them in, and we go through each case. I can't tell you carte blanche that everyone who comes in that will end up immediately with a job, but they can get some service from the Urban League, and we continue to work with employers that are sensitive to the issue, and we do the best that we can. But they don't get turned away when it comes to the Urban League.
So they are looking specifically to see if they can have help in getting the, what is it called when they eliminate those things from their record?
Records
Expunged.
expunged.
Yeah. What does Urban League have anything with that?
That's not what we do, but
Okay.
we are affiliated with a company that is a couple of blocks away, an African American gentleman who does that.
Is now, correct.
Also, I was at the Urban League when you had a meeting about the drug court, which I found very interesting. There's so much about the Urban League; it's hard to get it all in. But that day they were talking about how they could reintroduce people and rehabilitate people who have drug issues back into back on the straight and narrow path. How's that working out?
Well, it works out differently for each individual. You know about the elimination of the day that it was 4 days when the court set up in Hudson County to help clear the offenses and records that some people had. Now, quite a number of them were able to get it worked out positively. There were some that the courts couldn't help at that time, and they had to get themselves a lawyer. But that was a very successful event, and that was something we partnered with.
Well, the reason I mentioned that is a huge issue. And you said Assemblywoman, or rather State Senator Sandy Cunningham, is working very hard to eliminate that thing on the job applications about your. So we're going to have to go to a break right now, and I want to thank Elnora for being here tonight to enlighten us on not all the things, but many of the things the Urban League does. I can think of about 5 or 6 things we never got to.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot for being here. We hope to see you back, and it's good to see you because we use a lot of your people on our show.
Yes, I'd be happy to come back, and I'm going to talk to some folks about GoPro.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the phenomenal work you do.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to break, and we'll be back shortly.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have a product or service, a talent or something important to say, now's your chance to have your own radio show. Whether you're just starting out or a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We'll help you to grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 today or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your own radio show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio. Listen to the voices in your head.
You want to know the truth, folks? Do you really want to know the truth? Well, perhaps you can't handle the truth. But if you can listen to GoPro Radio. Tune in at www.goproradio.com. Now, have I made myself clear?
GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head. I know I do.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We're back with the Earl Morgan Hour with your host, Earl Morgan, and my co-host, Tinia Bland.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here, Tinia, once again. You're a treasure, let me tell you. We're now going to go to a portion of our show we call Right Jab. And this week's Right Jab will be delivered by Ms. Bland, who will be talking about Paul Ryan, which is a guy who ran for vice president against Barack Obama and lost.
Wait now. You're getting into my circle.
Well, I just want to set the scene, and has said some very controversial things lately. So we'll let Tinia tell you what her right jab at Paul Ryan is for this week.
On March 14th, Republican United States Representative Paul Ryan from Wisconsin agreed to meet with the Congressional Black Congress after his remarks were branded highly offensive. The controversy began on Wednesday after Paul Ryan on William Bennett's talk radio show, Morning in America, said the following: that there was a culture in our inner cities of men not working and not just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the values of work. Long-term Representative Barbara Lee of California, from his statement, said the following: "Let me be clear. When Mr. Ryan says inner city, when he says culture, these are simply code words for black," Lee said in her statement. Now, if you reread that, these remarks are highly offensive. As Mr. Morgan said, Mr. Ryan was the 2012 Republican vice presidential candidate who is known for his budgets with proposed deep cuts to help the poor. He is the potential 2016 presidential contender and has made a point of proposing Republican solutions to ease poverty that's focused on the private sector. The Wisconsin lawmaker who chairs, very important folks, the Budget Committee, said in a statement he was inarticulate. Got that? About the point he was trying to make. Now, let's just think about this. This is a person that was born in 1970. He's 44 years old, that means. He served in the United States as a United States representative for Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District since 1999. 15 years. I know this date because it's the date my son was born. 15 years. And he's inarticulate. He said, "We have allowed our society to isolate." Now, this is what he said when he's correcting the statement. "We have allowed our society to isolate or quarantine the poor rather than integrate people into our communities. The predictable results has been a multi-generational poverty and little opportunity." Mr. Ryan goes on to quote a report on the federal government's 50-year-old war on poverty that concluded that many of the 92 federal programs aimed at assisting the poor have been haphazard and contribute to a quote-unquote poverty trap that keeps people dependent on welfare programs. Let me go on. Marcia Fudge. If you know her, it's because she is the chairperson of the Congressional Black Caucus. And Representative Gwen Moore, who is also from Wisconsin,
Ryan State,
his home state, called his radio remarks so offensive that they invited him to a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus so that he can help them and discuss how he would like to eradicate poverty. This is a very serious problem. It's a serious problem and a very serious conversation that needs to take place. Because as long as we are stereotyping each other, as opposed to talking to each other and listening, as opposed to getting our remarks ready, we're not going to be in a place in America where we can make a difference. It's very important to know that the United States Representative Ryan, he served on the House Budget Committee since 2011. I hope we all know what the Budget Committee does. If not, it's time to do our homework. Poor Ryan was chosen as by Mitt Romney, the presidential hopeful, and he was nominated by the Republican Party as Vice President of the United States for the 2012 election. Mitt Romney and poor Ryan, as we all know now, were defeated by the incumbent two-term now President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden. At this point, it is of paramount importance that we realize what are the questions as to why we vote. Are we voting individuals or are we voting policies?
Well, we're getting close to the end of the program, so I want to thank you very much for your right jab and all that very useful information about Representative Paul Ryan. and his his untutored remarks, shall we say, on poverty. He also quoted some books written by some people who had some very damaging things to say about African American people and their intelligence. But
Mr. Morgan, I just want to make one point, and this is to the college students and to their parents. If you don't know who he is, go to the library or go online and look up the following. Will you have a Pell Grant? Is it in danger of being eliminated? Are the percentages going to rise? Because we only need to go to the fact sheet on the 2013
we don't have time.
budget.
We're out of time.
This is what you do at the library or online.
Right, we're out of time. We've had a great show tonight. We'll be back next week with another Earl Morgan Hour, hopefully, as jam-packed with information as this one was. And good night for everybody. Again, look for us on Facebook, Earl Morgan Hour, Twitter, Earl Morgan Hour.
Have a great evening.
Tania, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was very informative.